What's up guys, Skip Your Africanus here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the KV Broadside from Modern Warfare 2, or as it's known in real life, the Saiga 12. Or in very basic terms, AK Shotgun, because that's essentially what the Saiga 12 is. It's a Kalashnikov pattern rifle designed to take shot shells. Now, there are some differences between it and the standard Kalashnikov rifle, but we'll get into those later. And actually, funny enough, I had went to a gun show today. Initially, I was looking for an Uzi, but then the second gun I was looking for was a Lynx 12, which is a Chinese copy of the Saiga 12, because in the land of the free, Saiga 12s are actually banned from import, and they're quite expensive. So I just wanted a, cheap knockoff. That's enough to satisfy my shotgun needs. But they didn't have one of those, so sadly, we will not be able to go over a physical one for this video. However, I do own your standard run-of-the-mill AK, so in a minute, we'll go over that, and I can show you the actual differences between what's on your standard AK rifle versus the Saiga 12. Because while, for the most part, they are practically the same, they actually do employ some neat little features on the Saiga 12 that are specifically designed because of its use of a 12-gauge shot shell. But anyways, before we get into that, let's go into why the Saiga 12 actually exists. The reason these guns were made was for the Russian civilian market. They weren't initially made for any military or police forces, though police forces would eventually adopt them, but for the most part, they started off for the Russian civilian market, and then they would branch out into other civilian markets. I will mention that I do a lot of those PCC matches, and some of those, they'll combine shotgun shooters. Saiga 12s and their clones are super popular down here. To be quite honest, more than half of the shotgun shooters that I was seeing during those matches were all using Saiga 12s. So, initially designed for commercial use and to this day, still being used for recreation. Now, as mentioned though, police agencies did take a look at these, with first and foremost being the Russian equivalent of the SWAT. I don't think that's really at all surprising. They would choose an AK-style shotgun. Now, while I had mentioned that the recreational shooters, like competition shooters and all that, genuinely like these, or love these guns, really, the Russian SWAT doesn't like them at all. Though that's more, it has a lot more to do with the lack of standard 12-gauge ammo. They find the weapon kind of bulky and heavy. They're more used to like assault rifles and subguns. Shotguns really aren't traditionally used for Russian police forces. But yeah, so for the most part though, it varies depending on different countries' police departments, whether or not they like them. I mean, as it stands, the gun does work, of course, but certain police agencies like them, certain don't, for various reasons. And actually, fun fact, there's actually, and it's not a lot, but I actually recently found out as I was double checking some info for this video. There's a few police agencies in the United States that actually use these. There's actually some that use standard AKs too. They're mostly in Alaska, but I thought that was a neat little fact that I learned. Now, one thing I think is, in a way, a little bit worth mentioning, mainly with the Russian SWAT variant of the Saiga 12. Now, they might have exported these to other police agencies. I'm not too certain that the Russians are the only ones using this variant. But their variant is called the KS-K, or KC-K. I don't know why it just didn't initially say KC-K. Anyways, this is the Russian for it, and I'll give them credit because it has probably the second worst abbreviation for a gun, first and foremost being PIAT. But yeah, supposedly this translates to Special Carbine with Box Magazine. Very descriptive. Anyways, the KSK does have some minor I guess not minor, but it does have some differences between it and the standard Saiga 12. And I will mention, while discussing these differences, do note there's only one that really is and is not in each gun, or in one gun or the other. For the most part, a lot of the modifications that I'm going to mention for the KSK can be added to the Saiga 12, so I'm more referring to like stock configuration, like what you get from the factory, a Saiga 12 versus the KSK. So we'll start off with the main big one, and that is on the KSK there is no manual adjustment for gas settings. It's just high power ammunition or nothing. On the on the Saiga 12s, they have the ability to adjust for that, should you want to shoot, regular birdshot, which I think most people will end up shooting through these, or if you want to move up to higher stuff like buckshot or slugs. Actually, funny enough, that, not to get a little off topic, but that Lynx 12 I was looking at also has 4 adjustment settings, but Anyways, yeah, that's the big difference between the Sega 12 and the KSK, is one has an actual adjustable gas setting system, the other one flat out doesn't. Now, a lot of these other differences that I'm going to mention, like I said, you can have them on the standard Sega 12, but when it comes to stock configuration, they tend to not have them. So starting off, you know, on the KSK, they actually have an extended mag well just to make for a little bit easier loading. Barrel lengths are also going to be different. The KSKs tend to be shorter. Then add-on KSKs also come with a bolt hold open feature. But yeah, as mentioned, at least concerning the US market, you know, if you have a Sega 12, you can pretty much get all of this stuff added. So anyways, I think it's time we talk about how this gun works and what differentiates it from your standard AK rifle. So we're gonna hop onto the IRL camera where I have my run-of-the-mill AK, and I'll explain how the standard Kalashnikov pattern works, and then I'll explain the little differences that the Sega employs to make it be able to feed 12 gauge. So let's hop onto the IRL cam and check it out. Alright, so we got your standard run-of-the-mill AK, give or take, with some of the very cool aesthetic choices on this one. By the way, if you're going to complain about that weld right there being, not ground down and repainted, I don't care. But anyways, as mentioned, the Sega 12 and AK, well, I guess the Sega 12 is pretty much a AK pattern rifle. Pretty much a lot of the stuff is the same with the Sega 12. Uses the same way to... I had to grab my camera stand there for a second because this is actually kind of hard to do with only one hand. But anyways, as mentioned, the AK and Sega 12, a lot of stuff stays the same. The same way to take the mag out, put the mag in. Same style of safety on the side like that. All that good stuff. It's got a lot of same types of internals, which will be the next thing we go into. But before we do that, there is, of course, the differences. And one difference is, for the Sega 12 being in 12 gauge, they had to actually open up this ejection port. And when you do that, you're going to actually expose, some area inside the gun, which you really don't want to do. So one difference on the Sega 12s versus the standard AKs is, aside from that opened ejection port, they've actually added a metal sleeve over the back of this bolt, and it actually will kind of collapse on the bolt as the bolt cycles and all that. That's just there, of course, to keep dirt and debris out of the action because, obviously you don't want that stuff getting in the action. AKs are very reliable, but they can fail, especially if you start packing stuff in there. Another difference with these Sega 12s, as I'm pretty sure that I have mentioned, is they actually have an adjustable gas block. And this, of course, is to... depending on if you want to use some high-powered, like, buckshot, slugs, and all that, or if you just want to, shoot some regular bird shot, because, on shotguns, you tend to have different settings, or else one or the other is going to fail. And that gas block is located around this area. It's actually kind of inside here, and then you'll just adjust it. On the standard AK, there is no adjustment for gas. And when it comes to disassembly, it's going to be the same process as the AK, I might as well show you there's no round in there because I'm sure someone will get mad about that. But anyways, pretty much the same process as a standard AK. You got the button right here holding the dust cover. You're just going to press that one in, pop that off. Like I mentioned, on the Sega 12 bolt, there actually will be a metal sleeve riding along the back of here. Not present on the AK. Going further from there, once that dust cover is removed, you just push this in, up, pull it out. There's your recoil spring. And then you just pull the bolt out. Comes out like that. Now, there is another difference between the standard AK bolt and the Sega 12. Before I get into that, though, I'll explain kind of how the Sega 12 system itself works. Again, give or take, the Sega 12s will have an adjustable gas setting and all that, but when it comes down to basic function, it's relatively the same. So when your gun is in battery and ready to fire, the bolt is actually pushed back here like this. And notice how it rotates. What it's doing is it's actually locking into some recesses in the receiver. So what happens is the gas follows the bullet, of course, and then it goes up through this gas block right through here. And as it's going through there, it's pushing this rod. And while it's pushing this, it's pushing the whole carrier back, except for this bolt head. This bolt head still has to unlock. So this carrier is getting pushed back, and it's unlocking the bolt. Once it reaches that point, the whole bolt travels backwards, then forwards, goes back into battery, repeat the process. So that's essentially how your standard run-of-the-mill AK works. Long stroke gas piston, 2-lug rotating bolt, all that. Now, here's another weird thing where the Sega 12 differentiates a little bit from the AK, so we'll take this bolt head out for ease of demonstration. The Sega 12 bolt, this front end is actually rounded, and there's another piece that has your lugs on it right behind, showing these pictures above. They did that for ease of manufacturing, so basically your extractor doesn't rotate and all that. It's just the lugs rotating on its own little kind of piece. But same principle, but that is one of the big differences between the Sega 12 and the standard run-of-the-mill AK rifles. So in order to put this all back together, pretty easy. As easy as it is taking it apart, you're just going to take your bolt, push it in, and that little lug, you're going to line it up with that tracked, turn it clockwise, pull it until it's like that. Take your AK, put that piston in there, push down just a little bit right here, and also making sure that bolt is fully extended outward. Press it in, presto, and then take your recoil spring, feed it right in through there, put it in those notches, and then put the dust cover on, which for whatever reason tends to give me a little bit of trouble, but essentially you're going to press it in and have that button stick out. For some odd reason, mine doesn't like to align perfectly. And presto, AK fully assembled. Pretty much the same process as what would be done on a Sega 12, though there is a few different steps, because that bolt does come apart a little bit differently. As mentioned, it's a little bit different than the standard AK bolt. So before we go, I have my AUG clone here. Now, why do I have my AUG clone on a video about Sega 12s and AKs? Main reason is because it's the one gun I own that actually has an adjustable gas setting feature. So these are virtually the same across the board with differences on placement and all that stuff. So the way these work is by regulating gas flow. So on shotguns in particular, it's a very important feature to have because you have anything from very low power birdshot to high power buckshot, slugs, and all that. And you really can't set the gun for a specific load. You can, but if you want more versatility, then you're going to need a way to adjust the gas, because if you have just standard gas systems set for birdshot, when you go to run high-powered slugs and all that, you're going to end up over-gassing the action, damaging the gun. And on the reverse, if you have the gun set for more high-power loads like buckshot and slugs, and you try to run birdshot through it, it's really not going to want to cycle at all. So you obviously need a way to adjust the gas flow in the gun. So right here I got the little adjuster taken out of the gun, and you can see you got a smaller hole that's for, well, on the Sega 12 that would be for more, lesser powered rounds, so you can get a little more gas pressure to cycle the action. Then you got the larger hole for the more higher pressured rounds, so you don't overrun the gun. So anyways, I think that is going to do it for this short little video on the KV Broadsider from Modern Warfare 2, or as it's known in real life, the Sega 12. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I personally enjoyed making it, and be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button because we are doing every single gun from this game. I will see y'all next time.